So since this is a serious topic, I'm wearing my Dr. Mom blazer. Yeah, I look I could almost pass for professional if I did something with my hair, which I'm not going to do. Hello! I know I said that I was going to be making some videos about why I read what I read, and I have decided that it's going to have to be essentially a series of videos. Otherwise, I am not going to be able to cram all of my thoughts and all of my opinions into one video without it being approximately 2 hours long. So I think today I'm going to start with the very beginning, which is why I read YA. Why I read YA. I am very, very outside of the range as far as the target demographic for YA goes. No, I'm not in their demographic. I'm almost 30 years old with 2 kids and a house and bills and responsibilities and this, that, and the other thing. I am so far outside the range of somebody who can truly relate to YA, it's ridiculous. However, I have kids. I have 2 kids. I have 2 young girls. Yep. So I really do honestly read a lot of YA and some teen novels for them. I like to think of it as pre-reading, but sometimes we read them together at the same time. So my kid, my oldest child, she is 10. She's a precocious reader. She reads pretty far outside of her age range as far as she's 10. But what she craves to read is something more challenging, something more difficult, books that are made for her. She can blow right through in no time at all. She very much likes big, long tomes that are thick and heavy. And she's basically developing a hunch from carrying them around in her backpack all the time. As an adult who was also a precocious reader at her age, I remember feeling really lost between the ages of about 10 and 14. I didn't have anything that was really written for me. I jumped right into adult contemporary, which there's nothing wrong with. But I couldn't relate to the characters, I couldn't relate to the stories being told because they weren't written for me. They were written for somebody who was twice my age or 3 times my age with a whole slew of other problems. Those people were not in school, they were not dealing with peer pressure, they were not dealing with growth and maturing and puberty and boyfriends and school dances and all of that stuff. None of those books were for me. So while I needed more challenging material, and I very much needed something large, because even to this day I can blow through a book in one day, I wound up reading things that didn't touch me. They didn't make an impression on my psyche. I can't even remember half the books I read because they were forgettable, because there was no tie to the characters of the story. There was no connection. I want to be able to steer my kids in the direction of good literature. I want to be able to point them towards challenging but relatable books that are meant for them, or maybe kids just a bit older than them. I want them to have access to books that resonate with them on their journeys of growth and figuring out who they are and the problems that they deal with on a daily basis. I want them to have characters they can understand and plots that they can relate to. I want them to be transported to both fantastic and mundane places and go on adventures. I want to be involved in their discovery of self through reading. I want to steer them away from flat characters and stereotypes and horribly written tropes and towards complex, rich, deep characters that really accurately portray people, especially teenage people. Teenage people are very complex individuals. They're full of contradictions and hopes and wishes and fears, and I feel like a lot of times there's some books that don't accurately portray them. Maybe it's because it's easier to write that way, but I feel like it's not fair. I think they deserve to be written as such, and I think they should be able to find characters that don't dismiss or diminish their struggles and triumphs as teenagers. And I want to be able to have those books on hand and be able to give them to my kids when they are ready and when they need them and when they crave them. Another reason why I read YA is to relate. I'm getting older, obviously. I am aging at a rapid pace. With each passing year, I forget more and more what it was like to be a teenager. Granted, I remember some stuff. I remember doing stupid things, being boy crazy, and thinking I knew everything, and having lots of emotions and lots of opinions and all these problems and feeling like no one took them seriously. I remember those parts. But the older I get, the less vivid those memories are, and it's becoming easier to forget what being a teenager is like. My adult life is full of different people and struggles and situations. I do remember being a teen. I remember having all the feels and all the emotions and having big problems. But I also do remember my parents kind of not taking any of that seriously. And my parents were pretty hip. They were pretty cool. But I remember feeling like they didn't relate to me and my struggles and my life as much as they could have. I don't want to be out of tune with my kids. I want to keep remembering and realizing that just because our problems and struggles and victories and lives and personalities are different doesn't make mine any more real and theirs any less. Their problems are not less than mine. We have very different problems. My problems are bills and scheduling conflicts and budgets. Those are different problems than the average teenager faces. Not saying that there aren't teenagers who deal with those things, but the average teenager. It's not the same as what they're dealing with. Boys and peer pressure, bullies, and to have sex or not to have sex, to do drugs or not to do drugs. Along with all sorts of other things, sports, and figuring out who they are, or not knowing who they are, or trying to figure out who they are and failing at it. Those problems are not any less than my problems. They're different, but they're not less than. I feel like a lot of times teenagers get the short end of the stick on being taken seriously, and I feel like that's not healthy. I feel like when adults say that your problems aren't real, it's dismissive. It dismisses that you have feelings and you have thoughts and opinions, and they are just as valid as anyone else's. Just because you're not 30 years old with a mortgage does not mean you are not entitled to have feelings. It doesn't mean that your problems are less than mine. It means they're different. Likewise, as I get older, I find it's a lot easier for me to get apathetic about things. Teens are often referred to as melodramatic or drama queens or theatrical, but I really prefer the term passionate. You guys care about stuff. You care. You care about all the things. And you have no problem expressing those opinions and being very adamant about what you believe in. That's a good thing. I feel like a lot of times adults can get bogged down by the mundane, myself included, and forget to be passionate. I feel like we can very frequently get smothered under the weight of responsibility and under the day in, day out same old rat race, and we forget to care and we forget to be passionate. Because you're figuring out who you are and where you fit, and for the first time you have access to knowledge that you can understand and you are free to make your own choices about how you feel about it. You're passionate. You have all the opinions, and that's a good thing. Also, your world is changing at a much faster rate than it did when I was your age or my kid's age. I imagine keeping up with the rate of change is probably exhausting. I didn't have, okay, case in point, we didn't have smartphones when I was a teenager. We didn't have Facebook when I was a teenager. We barely had cell phones when I was a teenager. Texting wasn't really a thing. These are the things that, like, my adolescence was so drastically different from the adolescence my kids are going to experience. And I think it's easy to get lazy and decide that you're not going to bother trying to keep pace with them as they're trying to keep pace. I think it's easy to forget that their experience is not my experience and that these are not universal things. The world was different when I was their age. It will be different when you're my age. I feel like reading YA helps keep me in tune with the problems that kids face and the struggles that they have and the opinions that they have and how rapidly things change around them. I feel like it gives me a little bit of insight as to how they think and how they feel and what new pressures there are. We didn't have the same pressures when I was your age. The pressures when I was your age were different. When I was 15, your priorities were go to school, get good grades, go to college. That was basically it. Now you have to go to school, be in honor roll, be in advanced classes or AP classes or Regents classes and doing spectacularly. You have to be getting a scholarship. You have to be in 30 different extracurriculars. And on top of that, you need to have an extensive social life and an extensive social circle. There's so much going on in your worlds that I didn't have to deal with. My life was far simpler than yours. So those are just the big points, the main points as to why I read YA. I know that kind of turned into a dissertation on relating to teenagers, but that's kind of how we roll in this house. What I'm trying to do mainly is to keep being able to relate to my kids and to their problems and their lives and their thoughts and their joys and their ups and downs. I'm trying to stay current with those things. I want to be someone who actually gives a damn. I recognize my own faults. I understand that life is not the same and the world is not the same and we are not the same people. I think a lot of parents forget that your kids are not an extension of you. Things that they do should not be taken personally. My kids are different from me in a lot of different ways, and they're the same as me in a lot of different ways. And I think that I have to give them room to grow and develop in their own way while trying to guide them as best I can without being overbearing. I think like reading YA helps me to do that. I see the way the young adult characters are written and I see the way that their families are written. And I have to say that there's a lot of times that I don't agree with the way that the parents handle things in any kind of YA media. I don't agree. I don't want to treat my kids that way. I don't think that the way they act is logical or makes sense or is even empathetic towards their kids. I think to be a good parent for me means constantly challenging myself to do better and to be better. I feel like it means that I have to take my kids just as seriously as I take myself. I feel like reading YA gives me a leg up on how to do that without failing miserably. Because frankly, being a parent is freaking terrifying. It is so scary. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning it as I go, just like young adults, they're learning it as they go. We're just at different stages in life and we're learning different things, but we're having to do it at the same time and still relate to each other. That's hard. There's actually, and here we go, there's a quote from John Green, The Fault in Our Stars, that I can relate to for this. And it goes, I thought being an adult meant knowing what you believe, but that has not been my experience. And that basically sums it up. We don't know what we're doing either. We're figuring it out just like you are. The difference is we're better at faking it. It's more societally accepted for us to not know what we're doing. Fair or not, that is the way the world is. I'm trying to change it for my kids. I'm trying to change it in my own home, in my household. But I'm only one person. So if any of this verbal essay resonates with you, or you agree, or you disagree, or you just have various opinions, or you want to start a conversation, whether you are a parent like myself or you are a young adult, come at me, Brosephine. I'd love to hear it. I would like to open some lines of communication and have some dialogue as to, would young adults like to see more parents reading YA? Do you think it improves your relationship if your parents do read YA? I would like to know. Any other questions? I'm sure there's more. When you were a young adult, did you jump into adult contemporary before you found YA? These are things I would like to know. I would like to hear your thoughts on this. So, until next time, and there will be a next time, I have a ridiculous amount of notes and a lot of different things I want to cover. Let me know. Subscribe, like, comment, Twitter me, Facebook me. Let me know what you think. feel like sometimes, as an adult, in order to be taken seriously, I have to stop dressing like me. Why can't I just get words out of my mouth? Any other time, they come out with no problem, but today it's just nope, nothing is, blah, 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 blah. I just can't. I don't know what's wrong with me.